Yo, what is up guys, Grim here, and in today's video I thought I'd give you a day one recap of how we went on the first day of the Expedition League. So of course we did go with a Necromancer League starter here, and we do have quite a lot of stuff to talk about on how that went. So I started off with my friends Crouching Tuna and Elisha playing through the story, and oh man was the story way harder. It didn't just seem like Act 1 was harder though, the entire story seemed to be tuned up. I'm not sure if this is actually the case, or if it's just the lower damage, or I just haven't played in a while, but everything seemed to be hitting just a little bit harder for some reason, and my friends also shared that opinion. Now, throughout the acts, I felt like my damage was it was okay. My single target was going to be pretty okay, and getting through the acts was, it was reasonable with, of course, the mandatory deaths involved on some annoying bosses like Brian King, etc. As long as you can get your links together, you should be okay to do a lot of the farming and the bosses in the story mode. And that's going to be all good for you. So yeah, the actual story mode, not too bad as a Necromancer, and you can, blast your way through as long as you pick up all of the gems required. So to give you guys a bit of an idea, I started out in Act 1 with, skeletons. Initially I started with a Holy Flame Totem, and then I got some skeletons, and I was using Infernal Legion on them, and that really did carry me all the way to about Act 4. We used a bit of zombies in there, but then we threw out the zombies later on. Once I got to Act 4 and I got my 2 Carrion Golems going, that was pretty good. But I made sure the Carrion Golems were physical based. I should have included Impale, but I didn't. So make sure that you do make sure they have the maximum amount of physical damage on those Carrion Golems. It's really going to set you up for success, and you want to make sure those links are really good. So I do talk about that a little bit in my cheat sheet if you're really interested in the build. We were reserving a few auras, the good stuff, but overall, the campaign definitely seems a lot harder, specifically monsters from Act 1. So yeah, we got through all of that, no problem, and we got into the early maps. So, I want to put a disclaimer here. I got pretty much no currency drops. I think I got 1 Chaos Orb from the entire story mode. Unfortunately, the lead mechanic didn't give me anything but chromes and alterations overall, and it was a pretty rough time once we got into the maps, because I pretty much had just stuff off of the floor. I couldn't really afford anything, and my first border call was to pick up a pair of Triad Grips as soon as possible and get them colored so I could transition my Carrion Golems from physical into cold based, and that was going to be my main priority. And doing that was definitely no small task. So, as I mentioned in my guide, I had to use a ton of jewelers, which I farmed in T1-ish maps. Initially, my plan was to really push hard on the progression, but for some reason, maps felt a little bit tougher this time, so I really did have to grind up some currency before I could push into, for example, yellow maps. So I stayed in white maps for a good portion of day 1, just grinding up currency to be able to color my Triad Grips, which I eventually did just by selling 6 sockets. I didn't buy any jewels or anything like that. I just kept farming until I got enough 6 sockets to get 4 greens on my Triad Grips, and that allowed me to use cold damage on my Carrion Golems instead of the old physical damage, which was a big upgrade, and it made everything a lot easier. Also, I picked up 2 Clay Shapers to take my 2 Carrion Golem setup to a 4 Carrion Golem setup, and Clay Shapers are very cheap for the amount of power spike that they give you early on. Now, I will say, a few people in my chat were having a lot of success with Skeleton Mages in early white maps, as well as some people talking about the new Reaper, which apparently Ventrua is having a lot of success with. So you may want to check out those options instead if you're having a little trouble with the melee-based Summoner. There's also a few people talking about Spectres, and maybe that's going to be okay as well, using the Frost Scouts, I believe, if you want a more ranged base. So Skeleton Mages, Spectres, and also Reaper, if you're not liking how the Carrion Golems feel, before you get your Soul Rest staff, could also be something to look into, but I haven't tried that. I stuck with the Carrion Golems, and I made sure that my clear was pretty good with maintaining a 3-link skeletons with Infernal Legion on them, and that did okay for me. I was able to farm enough currency in white maps, which was around 1.8x, to buy my Soul Rest stuff. So I went from having my only uniques as being 4 green Triad Grips and 2 Clay Shapers, and we just stuck it out in white maps. Bang, bang, bang. I just grinded for a few hours, doing the Chaos recipe to acquire 1.8x worth of currency. Fortunately, Chris Wilson smiled upon me and I did drop an exalt from maps, but the lead mechanic was unfortunately no help at all in my currency grind in early maps. I'm not sure if I just didn't understand what I was doing or I just really didn't get it yet, but I didn't really get too many rewards from the lead mechanic early on. I think the most currency I've gotten from the lead mechanic so far was selling a few of the reroll tokens for about 10C. So that's pretty much it. So most of my currency was just from hard grinding and the chaos recipe to pick up the soul rest staff for about 1.8x. For some reason, it started going down in price and was really, really cheap. But overall, my RNG wasn't so great outside of the exalt drop. Alright, next up, we had to color and socket the soul rest staff. So this was a big deal. I actually got very lucky and that really helped me out. So I 6-socketed it fairly quickly after 20 qualitying it, and then I also colored it fairly quickly using chromatic orbs. A few people got unlucky in my chat, but I definitely was on the luckier side of things, so thank you for turning my RNG around, Chris Wilson. And after I got the soul rest staff, it was a complete transformation. My build was basically a different build. It basically could, things that were difficult before, I was basically just like blitzing it like I was going through Act 1. It felt really good, and once you get that staff, it's completely absurd. So right now we're running the 6-socket. This is essentially a 6-link, and I'm able to put in the gem swap here, which is faster projectiles and LMP, and it absolutely crushes all content. Just on a 4-grain Triad and 6-socket soul rest, you're going to be able to blitz your way probably all the way up to red maps, and it's going to be really good. So this build, despite the soul rest staff being around 3x now, is actually way cheaper than most other builds because it's a free 6-link, and that's really powerful. We're going to go over the character right here. Obviously, after I got the soul rest, I was able to sell stuff like my clay shapers. We were able to get through a lot more content. Still no rewards from Expedition, but it definitely was a lot easier, and now I am definitely in red maps. We have the full leapfrog done on day 1. We didn't get to the day 1 shaper, which is what I was shooting for. That's because obviously I wasn't good enough. You can definitely do it. It is what it is. I was definitely pretty happy with my progress on day 1, and now we're very well set up to go into day 2. I don't think that map sustain is an issue, although I did run into a few moments at the start where I actually ran out of T1 maps, which was kind of weird, and all my friends ran out of T1 maps as well. And then everyone in the chat ran out of T1 maps as well. I'm not sure why that is, but after I unlocked Zana and was able to purchase maps, I have a very healthy map pool, and I've been selling maps as well in order to get my money for my soul rest and my gear, so I don't think that there's going to be any issues with map sustain this league. But starting out, it was very strange. I didn't get any maps in the campaign either. So if you're worried about that, I had that problem too, but I just powered on through, just break through that wall, man, and then you'll eventually get through it and you'll be starting to pop off. Alright, of course, then after the soul rest, if you're interested, the next upgrade was Victario's Influence, which then really takes your damage to the next level and allows you to reserve another aura, which is going to be Zealotry, which I have up here. The linking of this is a bit weird. I recommend copying exactly what I got here because it does work. But yeah, I definitely wasted a few fusings trying to figure out what to do with the Victario's Influence. Yeah, pretty interesting there. But yeah, you don't really need much gear outside of just being resistance capped on this build, which is pretty handy. And after that, of course, we did, pick up some Abyss Jewels and a Darkness Enthroned, and then also a Cluster Jewel, which, we've got here. It's just a 2-mod Cluster Jewel, which I've got for a bit of extra minion damage here, which is quite effective in my opinion. So overall, how did the build perform? So, in the build, going through the story, it was about medium power level. Early maps, what I'd probably say it was definitely a little bit of a struggle early on. I was noticing that I wasn't doing a whole lot of damage before I got my cold conversion and was able to go elemental equilibrium. That was definitely a really rough point in the build, going just like at the very start of maps, trying to grind through. So I'd recommend getting some gear together and going for some chaos recipe in white maps to get get some items together. But then after you get some gear, whether that's cold carrying golems like silly mages or specters, and you get some gem levels, or you get the soul rest stuff, you're going to absolutely just bulldoze the entire game. The mana nerfs, not noticeable at all on a summoner. Like, I can spam my Archon Sprayed all day long on bosses, on everything, and it's not an issue at all. So if you're annoyed about mana, this is the build for you. It's not a problem at all, and it just performs exactly like how I thought it would after I got the staff. So it's very strong build. Very, very happy. And let's talk about what's going to be happening moving forward. So my new goal now is to take down all the bosses on day 2. Hopefully we can do it if the economy allows. The main reason I couldn't get Shaper is because I just didn't have the maps to do it. I had the build to do it, but I didn't have the maps to do it. So yeah, definitely pretty difficult. Definitely have noticed a little bit of a shorter supply in higher end materials due to the fact that people just aren't there yet because the game's a little bit harder. But overall, I'm pretty excited. We're going to be farming up a storm today on stream. If you guys have any questions or problems, definitely post down below. Hope you guys have enjoyed this quick recap. And we'll be talking about Expedition in my other video, which I'm going to be uploading today, which is going to be my Expedition First Impressions. So don't miss that out, guys. Hope you guys have enjoyed and you're pumping the league. Until next time, cheers.